Welcome to the June 20th, 2023 City Council meeting for Half Moon Bay. May I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone?
Here.
Councilmember Reddick?
Here.
Councilmember Rohrbeck?
Here.
Vice Mayor Jimenez?
Here.
Mayor Penrose?
Here.
You have a quorum.
We rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for some. Thank you. We now have Mid-Coast Community Council update. Do we have someone from the Mid-Coast Community Council here?
Yes, you do. I trust you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead, Greg.
So we participated in your emergency day, and then we saw the Pride Day turnout, and we want to join that party next year. We got petitions signed for a community fiber network and for securing evacuation north of the Lantos Tunnel. In Quarry Park, the off-leash dog pilot completed and was a success and will be extended. I want to flag concerns we have over Highway 1 at Surfers Beach. We need a multi-agency action with a lot of competing priorities in a tight eroding space, and Highway 1 there, as you've probably seen, has eroded significantly. So I will be alerting Supervisor Mueller, and hopefully you will join with Caltrans, GCSD, and others in trying to come up with a solution there. The MCC wrote a letter asking public health to fund fentanyl and other dangerous substances testing at the sand plant. I've been working with the public health staff of San Mateo County on that. Talked with Matt Chittister about community fiber network. I forwarded him a proposal for a feasibility study, and I'm asking the county to fund that to get the community fiber network off the ground. And then lastly, I've been working on a stormwater report to reflect the many problems caused by this year's storms. I can't find a county stormwater master plan, so I'll be asking for that for our area. I discovered that Orinda created a Citizens Infrastructure Oversight Committee to ensure that tax monies were spent on priority infrastructure and in an efficient manner. And that overlaps the community fiber project because the philosophy of dig once yields big savings when PG&E, Caltrans, and other road work, storm drains, water, sewer, and the internet are all planned together. And so I just thought, given that you have an unfunded $10 million in your stormwater capital plan of $12.4 million, you might want to consider an approach like Orinda's. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Greg. I have no announcements of community activities or service. A report out from recent closed session meetings.
Thank you, Mayor. The council did meet in closed session prior to this meeting to discuss two items listed on the special meeting agenda. Nothing to report out of today's closed session.
Thank you. We now have public forum. If anybody has anything that they would like. Our city manager, our esteemed city manager, will give us updates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We just have two quick updates tonight. The first will be John Dowdy, our Assistant City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, community. Just a quick update. We understand there's been some activity occurring at Poplar Beach, and we wanted to at least acknowledge that and sort of move forward in terms of understanding where we are. So we know there's more information out there that we're trying to gather. What we can say is we certainly acknowledge that there were events occurring after hours. Anecdotally, younger folks probably mainly in these events. We have met with Captain Albin and their staff, and we've been talking about various things, including increasing patrol presence out there at the Poplar Point, and monitoring the immediate beach area, looking at the citations where folks are parked after hours, things of that nature, and then continue to assess other deterrents and responses for after-hour activities. We also wanted to affirm to the community that we had already been working on and had in place plans for the July 4th weekend, as well as for the coming Labor Day weekend as well. We know the July 4th is always a challenging time, and being that this will be probably a very long weekend situation, but plans are in place for that, including additional patrols and access, and also our public works staff. I know that are expecting that some of this will come around on the question of the gate and whether the gates should be opened, whether the gates should be locked. I wanted just to remind the community and the council how we got to this point, which is in 2019, the city initiated a pilot program to open the gate. This shifted a few, 6 months later into really a semi-permanent. And I will say from my experience, and I know that doesn't count for much, but that it was a success and has been a success in many respects. Now, did it stop all after-hours activities and problems and issues? No. But we assume tonight and probably coming forward that there will be a conversation about this, and we think there's certainly an opening for a dialogue and conversation about whether this is appropriate. But I think the important piece for us and what we want to just convey tonight is that the open gate was created because we were getting significant concerns and issues from the adjoining neighborhood about the activities and the folks parking, coming back to their cars and things of that nature, which were far more disruptive than having the gate open and having folks perhaps parking in the nighttime out at Poplar. Now, this has to be done in coordination and collaboration and in concert with enforcement as well. And also, this picture is just an interesting picture from way back when, in which what we found is that gate did not stop either people from ingressing or egressing when they wanted to get around, if you had the right vehicle. And the neighbor there right directly was the one who received most of the damage and issues and problems from that. So there were a lot of reasons, a lot of history here. And I just think from our experience that, again, an open dialogue is good, but recognizing and remembering why we went to the open gate is an important piece to start with, and understand what the unintended consequences could be about reinvigorating or reclosing the gates. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Yes.
I do want to say one thing. I'm glad that we're talking with the sheriff about additional patrols, especially during the holidays. I will see this in favor of the sheriff's office. I have seen more sheriff's deputies out and about and ticketing people for reckless driving in the area of Railroad Avenue and Poplar. Speeders and other traffic infractions. I've probably seen 4 maybe in the last 2 or 3 months, which is definitely an uptick over what we had before. So I think that's good, and we want to let the sheriff's office know that we, appreciate the additional enforcement that's been going on. So.
Thank you.
I would also just share one other piece of context that I think is important. What makes things challenging is we legally cannot close the beach. In California, beaches remain open 24/7 to public access. All we can close is the parking lot. And so knowing that people have the right to and often choose to access the beach, the open gate policy just meant people doing that wouldn't be hopefully parking in the neighborhoods at night, but be at least keeping their activities to the parking lot and below. But as John said, the coordination with the sheriff's office and doing enforcement is really, really important and key to this.
Well, and as a follow-on to that, we know that we can't limit parking in the neighborhood either, right? I mean, they don't want you to have parking, like no parking signs and all that stuff. We got into trouble over that before, so that's another issue, yeah.
That's exactly right. So thank you, John, and we'll continue to work with the sheriff and with the community on this issue. It's one other just brief item I just wanted to make a public statement about. Sadly, this morning, we arrived to work to find that there had been the ongoing graffiti issues we've been dealing with were found right in the heart of downtown, including graffiti on the new Pumpkin Festival mural at Cunha's Country Store and the mural commissioned by Seacrest School in MacDutra Plaza and several of the community fixtures around that. It appears to be gang-related and concerning to us, not just for that reason, but also public art is usually there's an unwritten rule that it's off limits, and this party or parties chose to deface these community murals. We just happened to be meeting with Sheriff Christina Corpus and her team, her leadership team today at City Hall. So they had a front row seat to seeing the activity around that. They are committed to working on the gang issue. They've been working on it and committed to finding obviously who committed these crimes and holding them accountable. Some small good news. We had anti-graffiti protection on the Cunha's Country Store mural. And so our wonderful facilities team, we've got Todd Seeley, our superintendent, who loves attention in the back. His great team immediately was out there first thing in the morning. They met with the artist, got some direction, and the graffiti on the mural is already gone. There's a few remnant pieces where there wasn't the coating. She'll be coming back to do some touch-up work and then reapplying the anti-graffiti coating. But it works. It was pretty magical to see that and heartening. They're obviously working on the other pieces of equipment out there. It's important for us to remove the graffiti as quickly as possible. I just kind of want to make the statement that our community doesn't stand for this kind of behavior, and there's been an outpouring of support, I know, on Nextdoor and other places to make sure that we keep that great character we have downtown moving and going forward, and we appreciate that sentiment, and we'll continue to work with the Sheriff's Office to deal with this and other issues alike. So if there's any questions on that, I'm happy to take them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We now have it open for public forum. If you've got anything that you would like to comment on that is not on the regular agenda but is on the consent agenda or other comments, please fill out a card. Our first speaker will be Elizabeth Honeyman.
Good evening. My name's Elizabeth Honeyman, and I live on Poplar Street. I have for almost 40 years. Bought a house about 40 years ago, raised my family here. I've watched Half Moon Bay grow to where now we're busting at the seams. That growth brought major changes, some good and some very bad. Recently, I posted an article on Nextdoor, the internet site, which seems to have replaced our local newspaper, the Half Moon Bay Review. For those of you who missed the article, here is a shorter version. Sunday, a pickup truck with 4 teenage boys of about 16 years old drove fast down Poplar Street. One of the boys was hanging out the window on the passenger side. He was smacking mailboxes and anything in the way he could, and yelling as loud as he could, F this, F that, and throwing trash out the windows on my garden. I was out on my way out on an errand and decided to follow them to the bluff to get the license plate. I was able to take a photo of their license plate and also of one of the boys. I called the police. After several minutes, I actually had to call twice, I finally got someone to speak to. Later, I got a return call from another officer. He told me they had traced the license plate and the truck was registered in Manteca. That's the third license plate I've reported recently regarding major problems with beachgoers and reckless driving on Poplar Street, and none were from San Mateo County. He said they will do a follow-up. I told him since school got out, it's been horrific on Poplar Street every night. I relayed what had happened the night before with a huge stream of cars and a lot of young people going back and forth to the beach. I had never seen that many people walking down to the beach in groups. They, mostly boys, were cursing, drinking beer, and very rowdy and vulgar. He acknowledged it had been a bad night for the officers also. He said they responded to several calls from our area and that they had a count of at least 300 people at Poplar Beach that night, plus more than 75 vehicles. First of all, Poplar Street was never meant to have 75 plus vehicles in the beach parking lot, nor 300 teenagers partying on the beach all night to all hours. I asked why the big gate was being left open, which encourages parties. And he told me the officers would, I said it should go back to closing at 9 p.m. He told me the officers would like that very much, as it would help them with controlling and preventing all the problems that have arisen from keeping the gate open at night, especially during the hours when traffic problems are more demanding elsewhere and they're understaffed. Unfortunately, he said it was the city that dictates. This decision to accommodate the open gate regarding the premises that keeping the gate, the premise that keeping the gate open will eliminate any cars parking in other neighborhoods is a proven fallacy. By leaving the gate open, word has spread. Now, instead of 60 local teens going to the beach to celebrate or just blow off steam, we have opened Pandora's box, and 300 was the official count regarding the most recent beach party. The party lot cannot accommodate half those cars. Can you wrap it up, Elizabeth? Yes. Keeping the gate open 24/7 is like sending an invitation to teens and nefarious other individuals over a 150-mile radius.
Thank you.
One thing. Over 100 neighbors sent positive agree with you notes to my Nextdoor article. 25 more sent personal messages or emailed directly. Deborah Ruddick responded to one person who contacted her and said, thanks, but neighbors' input will be prioritized. Well, that's 125 minimum people who want the gate shut. How many do we need to have the priority?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next
One
up, we
thing-
have John Ullum.
Pardon?
I said, next up, we have John Ullum.
Really minor. Be really easy, a lot easier for people to attend meetings. Take a chair or? Okay, it'd be a lot easier for people to attend the meetings and enjoy the meetings and wait until we get to the parts that we want to, if we could just easily sign on to the wireless network. And all of your wireless networks here are passcoded as they should be. But it'd be really cool if you put it on the front here, so that when I sat down, I could easily sign on to the public network that we're all paying for and not have to ask. So what is the passcode for which network? Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we have Rocio Avila.
Buenas tardes. Quiero agradecer que estén aquí de nuevo escuchándonos. También quiero decir que gracias al supervisor Ray Mueller, que esta semana tuvo la apertura de su nueva oficina aquí en Half Moon Bay. Pienso que esta es una muy buena oportunidad y para todos, para las personas que no tenemos cómo menear o cómo ir a una oficina del condado, saber que ellos están aquí y que ellos escuchan el condado, ustedes, la ciudad, nuestras necesidades, esto va a ser muy bueno para toda la comunidad.
Good afternoon, and thank you once again for listening. Also, I just wanted to say that thank you to Supervisor Mueller this week for the new opening of his office. I think it's a good opportunity for all the people who really can't make it to like a county facility somewhere else. And also thanks for the city who are here listening to us.
También hubo muchas personas presentes, como la congresista Ana Ishu, varias personas del concilio de diferentes partes, y también el supervisor Ray Mueller dijo, a lo que yo entendí, porque mi inglés no está muy bien, pero lo que entendí es que dijo que si todos unidos por una causa, todo se puede hacer, trabajando todos juntos, la congresista, el senador, ¿cómo se llama el señor? Mark Beckman, el supervisor y el concilio, todo se puede hacer. Así que si trabajamos todos juntos y unidos con la comunidad, podemos hacer que se logren las viviendas que necesitamos. Sabemos que las viviendas son una prioridad y él lo dijo. Hay muchas cosas, hay muchas prioridades y todos trabajando juntos vamos a hacer que esas prioridades se realicen. Gracias.
Also, many people were there, like Ann Ishu, also many other people from other councils. Supervisor Mueller said that being together, being united, we can basically do it. I think Congress people, senators, supervisors, and also councils united, we can do it all. And being together and being united, we can have this housing issue for all. And, you know, there are many priorities, and Supervisor Mueller said that there are many of them, but he said that if we all work together, then we can actually do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocio. Next, we have Crystal Hernandez Avila.
Good evening. Primarily, I want to thank you for all the effort that you guys are doing for the affordable housing. Second, I want to request that they make a rent regulation while our houses, the ones that we are putting faith on so they can be built. Meanwhile, if you guys could allow us to have an affordable home for kids and adults. It's approved that kids have to have a place to be able to have an appropriate place to be able to have good grades in school and also a better mental health that helps families. So lastly, I invite you to a march on Friday 23rd of June at 6 p.m. in the Yellow House of Alas. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Next, we have Carolina Carvajal.
Muy buenas tardes y gracias por siempre darnos este espacio.
So good afternoon, and thank you as always for giving us this space.
Hemos notado que se está viendo la lucha por las viviendas y eso es algo que se les agradece mucho.
So we've been noticing, and we can see like all of this fight that we've had for housing. So we appreciate that very much.
Pero como sabemos es algo que lleva su tiempo.
But we know these things take time.
Así que mientras tanto, queremos y seguimos abogando para que nos haga una regulación de la renta en Half Moon Bay.
So in the meantime, we continue to advocate for some kind of rental control in Half Moon Bay.
Como pueden notar, hay muchos negocios en este pueblo que están cerrando porque la renta es excesivamente alta.
As you've all noticed, there's a lot of businesses going out of business for the high rents in this town.
Ustedes saben que eso no nos conviene a nosotros como pobladores.
And as people who live in this town, it's not convenient for us.
Al cerrar las empresas o los locales, perdemos empleos y hay una disminución también de ingresos, ya sea para los dueños como para la ciudad.
So if businesses close up, we don't just lose work, but we also lose income, not just for the owners, but also for the city.
Entonces, ahí nos estamos viendo afectados todos. Esto es un daño para todos.
So this is where we're all affected. This hurts us all.
Mientras tanto, vemos también que muchas casas están en venta en Half Moon Bay. Muchos pobladores se están marchando.
So we also see a lot of homes for sale in Half Moon Bay. A lot of people are leaving.
Y aunque nosotros quisiéramos adquirir esas viviendas, lo podemos decir así francamente, las condiciones que tienen para que nosotros compremos un hogar es a veces realmente inalcanzable.
So, we want to obtain these types of houses or get these kind of houses, but I'm just going to say it quite frankly. The conditions for us to buy these types of homes or get these types of homes are completely unreachable to us.
Entonces, algo está sucediendo, algo debemos de hacer.
So something's happening. We need to do something.
Y con respecto, yo quiero pronunciarme con respecto al vandalismo que ha habido.
And so I specifically want to talk about the vandalism that's been happening.
Yo soy latina,
I'm Latina,
pero no apruebo eso.
but I do not approve of that.
Si nuestros hijos o los hijos de nuestros amigos están haciendo eso,
So if our kids are doing that or our friends' kids are doing something like that,
hay que castigarlos.
they need to be punished.
Ellos necesitan pagar una multa o tener un tiempo en algún lugar donde vean que eso no está correcto.
So they need to pay like a fine or be confined to something to see that you just don't do that.
Nosotros estamos huyendo de la violencia en nuestros países.
So we're, running away from violence in our countries.
No queremos que en nuestro pueblo haya eso.
We don't want that sort of thing in our town.
Si amamos el Half Moon Bay es porque es un lugar sano y seguro para nuestros hijos.
If we love Half Moon Bay, it's because it's a safe and great place.
Tengan por seguro que eso no es algo que nos agrade a nosotros. No nos agrada a nosotros.
So for certain, it's something that we're not favorable to.
Y estamos a favor que se genere un castigo para eso.
And we're in agreement that we should kind of generate some kind of punishment for it.
Así que muchas gracias.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolina. Next, we have Karen Meiswinkel.
Hi, good evening. I live on Poplar Street. It's quite an experience that nobody has any idea of unless you're there. There's nothing like being there. What you hear happens in tales and this and that. It's just the people that live on it that experience it. And it is, if I had ever known what it was going to turn into in present day, I would have never moved here 15 years ago. It's completely different now. First of all, I'd like to address the issue of the gate. The gate, I completely disagree with Mr. Doherty. The gate absolutely did do a lot of good. I mean, it completely controlled things. And that was really great when we had that. I do a lot of late night walks with my dog. I don't have a dog now, but I did. That's my priority. And because I do, I see things that a lot of people don't see, that are tucked in for the night or not out and about. And there is no really patrolling police force to any degree unless we call them. So they do what they can with that, but it's far from enough, especially with today's circumstances. One of the other things, I've always been told that Poplar Beach belongs to the city of Half Moon Bay. It is not like the state beaches, it's not in that group. So the laws and the whatever open 24 hours and so forth, to my knowledge, do not apply to Poplar Beach. So last Friday night was a nightmare. It was unbelievable. It was like something out of a bad movie. There was 300 kids down there partying. There was a huge bonfire. Okay, first of all, fires are illegal. There's a law. They're illegal on Poplar Beach. However, that's never enforced because they kind of don't even know the code for that, and nothing's ever done about it. And they say they have to know exactly which person started it and things like that. It's a very dangerous thing with people drinking and, doing whatever else they're doing down there, especially kids. There was a solid barrage of cars going like up to 50 miles an hour on Friday night down Poplar. It was just insane. It was crazy. They were throwing beer cans at my house, shouting obscenities, etc. They were all drunk and just whatever. The police had rousted them out of there. I had called twice, and on my patrol that night to see what was going on, I ran into 2 police officers. And he told me that basically they couldn't do anything to them because they were minors. So they just kind of shooed them out of there at about 10:30 to 11, and they started out in their cars in the condition they were in. I find it astonishing that if you or I were driving 50 miles an hour down a residential street, drunk and everything else, we'd be busted right away. Well, they can't touch the kids, but they sent them all driving in this condition in their cars. And it was just bizarre, absolutely bizarre. So there's the bonfire issue, there's them down there doing that. And while this is all going on, all over my neighborhood around, there was serious fireworks going off on different corners and so forth. Not little things, not sparklers, really, and it's not even July yet. So yes, that's definitely a problem. But anyway, I checked the beach the next night after that and earlier on, and there was again some small fires and kids down there and stuff. I don't know how big it got that night, probably not that much. But the fact that they can get away with this, that they weren't even stopped for being minors driving drunk and on whatever else, the word spreads, hey, let's go party at Poplar Beach, you can do that there. It's not going to stop at all.
Thank you, Karen. Can you wrap it up, please?
I'm trying, but I think it's very important to allow the people that actually see it and experience it on Poplar Street to finish what they have to say so you're informed. I don't think it's polite to be cut off. Anyway, there's got to be something done. It's really out of control, and somebody's going to get hurt or killed, and that's what it seems like it's going to take for any kind of real salient action to happen.
Thank you, Karen. Next, we have Scott Amar.
Thank you. I also live on Poplar and experience what they're talking about. Of course I have. But I've lived on the coast my whole life and used to go down there all the time. I still go down there all the time. I like to striper fish, early, late, blah, blah, blah. And I want to say that my first experience after the gate was open, back in 2019, I went down early, and there was 3 kids, basically a naked girl and 2 guys wandering around, just whacked on drugs. And I'm not saying the gate would have stopped them from going there, but I know for a fact if these kids can't drive down there with their coolers full of beer, it's going to lower that expectation. They're not going to be able to do what they're doing. They are tearing that beach apart. And my question is, and I don't want to be rude or I'm not trying to be presumptuous, but have any one of you ever driven down there at 9:30 or 10 o'clock on a Friday or Saturday night and experienced that? Any of you? You have.
I live in the neighborhood.
And was it positive or negative?
You mean this weekend?
No, any weekend. Any weekend. Has any of you ever been down there on a Friday or Saturday night between 9 or 10 or 11 and experienced it?
I would say that this past weekend was very unique. I mean, it's
I'm
not that there
talking
haven't
about
been problems, but it
every
was
summer
unique.
since it's been open. It's not, this weekend was really bad, and you're right. But that was a simple question, and no one raised their hand. You're sitting at home in your living room while these kids are down there. And it's also, the sheriffs are not going down on the beach. They will not leave their car in case they get a call. They're not going down there. So they're not the answer. They can't stop it, and they won't stop it. They can't. Only you can. You're letting it get out of hand. It's out of hand. I've been going down there since I was 15. I was raised here, went to high school here. It's just ridiculously out of control. And until you go down there, if you women go down there, you're in trouble. You could potentially be in trouble. Go down there at 9 or 10 o'clock and look. Look over the cliff. Listen to them. Look at the trash. It's ridiculous that you open that gate. The sheriffs aren't gonna go down on the beach unless there's a gunshot or someone stabbed. They won't leave their vehicles. I've talked to them. And I've called them countless times. Actually had a sergeant come to my home and talk to me for a long time about the speeding. I called dispatch, 50, 60 times, and she finally said, I'm gonna have a guy come by and talk to you, and he did. And he said this, he said, we're really busy right now, but I'm gonna post a guy here at First and Poplar, and they did. And they just lit them up with tickets, but they didn't come back. You said that you saw 3 or 4 last week?
No, the last couple of months.
Okay, yeah, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. The sheriffs can't do it. They're overwhelmed already. I love the sheriffs. I back the blue 100%. I love those guys. And I don't want to, they shouldn't have this burden that you people have put on them. They've got enough to do. And it's just miserable. You go down there. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to tell you something to enlighten you. Drive down there. I dare you to drive down there alone at night. Get out of your car and wander around a little bit. Someone's gonna say something to you.
Thank you. Do we have people online? Thank you, Jessica.
Yes, first up is Joanne Rokoski.
Hi, my name is Joanne Rakoski. I am a member of the Unitarian Universalist Coastside community, and I'm also a member of Coastside Faith in Action. Faith in Action Bay Area is part of PICO, California, which is a statewide interfaith organizing coalition. PICO currently has 4 housing bills that have passed through the Senate and are now in the Assembly, or vice versa. While these bills continue to progress through the state legislature, Half Moon Bay has an opportunity to take steps now to protect its residents with measures to prevent undue rent increases, unfair eviction, and harassment. These are all interim steps to prevent displacement and increase the risk of homelessness while you simultaneously do your work, which you are doing beautifully, to increase the stock of affordable housing. I urge you to take action in terms of protecting the renters, low-income renters within Half Moon Bay. And I thank you for everything you are doing on behalf of the low-income population of Half Moon Bay. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Linda Goldstein. Linda? Linda, I'll come back to you in just a second. Carlisle and Young?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really feel sorry for the neighbors on Poplar, but also just the inaction of actual constant law enforcement to patrol that street. So I would like to suggest, I listen in on the the supervisors meeting every other 2 weeks, and this past 2 weeks ago, or within a week and a half ago, they appropriated $220,000 to pay for some license plate readers in the Burlingame Hills and North Fair Oaks. And they already have those license plate readers at other local police departments: San Mateo, Atherton, Burlingame, Hillsborough, Colma, San Bruno, Foster City, and of the Millbrae and San Carlos and Woodside, which is patrolled by the sheriffs. So that $220,000 bought them 55 additional license plate readers. Some for 6 of them were for the Burlingame Hills, and I think the other 55 were for North Fair Oaks. It just stands to reason, if we're getting so many out of the area visitors, that could account for some of the smash and grabs and other activity that's, seems to negatively been affecting the coast side. And obviously you guys probably don't want to do it. It's going to cost you money to do it, but it might help. And my other suggestion would be to ask for some CHP to pull people over and test their breath. And that might, the word might get out that there's going to be enforcement for alcohol and driving and beach parties. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sid.
Nancy Margulies?
Yes, Joanne Rakowski said everything I wanted to say, but I'd like to second it. Protecting low-income renters, protecting against unfair evictions, and I would just mostly want to thank you for the work that is going on, for the additional housing that's coming on board. Please continue, and just know that the public is with you and appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Chaley Collins?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to comment on the graffiti that damaged the lovely murals that we have downtown. I think our city manager covered it really well. But I would say that it is definitely an escalation in gang behavior, right? And I understand that it's a new gang, the North 14s versus the Red 13s. So it's very concerning. Which led me to another thing which I came across in talking with some friends today, is the outreach programs that we have from the sheriff's office in terms of actually getting out into the community so that people that are really affected by this are comfortable in talking with the local sheriff and pointing out that, okay, these, this might be where things are going on. I've been on the NET program, the NET program. I'm on the CARES program for the Sheriff's Department. And the representation from our Hispanic populations is actually pretty minimal. So it might benefit us to put some thought into how can we do a better job of extending this, particularly with the Sheriff's Department. Just walking down Main Street and saying hello to people really doesn't reach, I think, the population that needs to be reached. And that's all I think I wanted to bring up tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chile.
No other speakers, Mayor.
Okay, we move on to the consent calendar, and I want to pull items 1I, 1O, and 1P. May I have a motion for the non-pulled items, please?
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, could we also pull item 1Q
Yes.
as well? Thank you.
Just making sure I'm circling the ones that are pulled. I move that we adopt the following consent items. 1A, waive reading of resolutions and ordinances. 1B, warrants for the month of May 2023. 1C, short-term vacation rental and home occupational ordinance, second reading. Item 1D, agreement with Abundant Grace for the FY 2023-24 Coastal Cleanup Program. Item 1E, final acceptance of the Pelican Point Generator Replacement Project, CIP number 1284. Item 1F, First Amendment to the Consultant Services Agreement with SWCA Environmental Consultants, Inc. for environmental services for the Pillarcitos Creek Restoration and Remediation Project. Item 1G, the Poplar Street Traffic Calming and Safety Project, Phase 1 Caltrans Program Supplement Agreement. Item 1H, SMCTA Funding Agreement for the East Side Trail North Segment 4. Item 1J, 555 Kelly Avenue Affordable Housing Development, extension of the term of the exclusive negotiations agreement with Mercy Housing. Item 1K, salary schedule for the International Union of Operating Engineers, stationary local 39 AFL-CIO, represented management team members and non-represented employees. Item 1L, proposed classification and compensation changes. Item 1M, Cassell Inc. Professional Services Agreement. Item 1N, authorize the city manager to waive special event permit fees for residents who host block parties on National Night Out. And I think that's it, and then the rest have been pulled. Okay.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. Should we take the items that we've removed from consent and go over them now?
Madam Mayor, I think the traditional practice is to take them at the beginning of Section 3. We do have one public hearing that we should take care of first, and then I think we could go to those items.
Okay, thank you. So we're moving on to item 2A, resolution assessing the levy for the Half Moon Bay Business Improvement District for fiscal year 2023-24.
Great, thank you. And good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and Community. I'm Karen Decker, Economic and Community Vitality Manager. I am here this evening to follow up on the meeting from May 16th, where your council approved the Half Moon Bay Hotel Business Improvement District annual report. That evening, you also adopted a resolution declaring the city's intention to continue the basis and levy the assessment for the BID at a rate of $1 per room per night. And again, this funds promotion and marketing for lodging throughout the city and the coastside. Your council set today's date to hold the public hearing, which is a requirement of the state code that governs BIDs. So tonight, I will invite Mayor Penrose to open the public hearing, entertain any verbal protests, close the public hearing, entertain any written protests, and if council is inclined, adopt a resolution assessing the levy for the Half Moon Bay Hotel Business Improvement District for fiscal year 2023-24. So at this time, I will invite Mayor Penrose to open the public hearing.
The public hearing is opened. Do we have any comments from the public? There are no comments, so we close the public hearing.
Great. Any verbal protests or written?
No verbal protest or written. So we have closed the public hearing. We have a motion or discussion by council? No comments? Can we have a motion, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion that having conducted a public hearing and considered any oral written protests, that we adopt a resolution assessing the levy for the Half Moon Bay Business Improvement District for fiscal year 2023-24.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Motion carries.
Thank you.
So now we will move on to item 1I. And who was it that wanted that pulled? That was Councilmember Rarbach.
I pulled items 1I and 1P in the interest of transparency. 1I and 1P involve contracts that the city has had for a while. They amount to more than $1.2 million. It's a big deal. And I don't think they should have been on consent. I think we should have had a more of a discussion about whether or not we're getting our money's worth with these contracts that have been renewed. And in particular, I didn't see any real performance measures that applied to these relatively long-term contracts. So I'm not necessarily opposed. I just think that in the future we should have more transparency about how we go about renewing these contracts. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Does staff want to respond to that?
I'll just say point is taken. This has been the practice that we've had for many years, but obviously as staff are open to looking at other ways of doing this work. We're happy to look at how other cities, part of it is the number of contracts we're talking about. It could be an extensive conversation here, and there's the interest of time and process, but certainly we can take a closer look at them in future years and maybe pick out which ones need to be on regular agenda or find a way to have them all on a regular agenda, provide a little bit of feedback on them, and then at least give the opportunity for conversation. So we're open to that as staff. We don't have to follow past practices, certainly. So.
Yeah, I like the idea of having a performance report if we're going to be renewing a contract that's worth, over a couple $100,000 anyway. That's it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I just want to point out that Four Leaf alone has contracts totaling over $500,000 just itself. And I think I agree with Councilmember Rarbach and our mayor about, reviewing how we award these contracts. But I think we need to pay particular attention to those entities that are involved in enforcement. It seems to me that lately, the last couple of years, we've had brouhahas over non-compliance of, some developments getting started and not complying with their permits, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like to pay particular focus on those contract services that involve or would precipitate enforcement actions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, can I just one comment?
Yes.
I noticed in the staff report that there were some statements about performance and being happy with the performance of some of these contractors. So I think if we're going to ask for more qualitative and/or quantitative detail around performance, then we should be prepared at some point to explain what more we would like to see. Because there is stuff in the staff report where we said, yeah, we've been happy, it's taken workload off other staff, that, because there's been so much stuff to do. So the more we could be specific about what we would be looking for would be great, so they'll know what to do. Great.
Good point.
Can I have a motion on item 1I and 1P?
I move that we adopt a resolution author, item 1I, annual renewal of community development contracts, and item 1.
We need to do two separate motions, please.
Oh, this is, okay, first 1I, that we adopt item 1I, annual renewal of community development contracts.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, item 1.
I move that we adopt item 1P in the consent calendar, annual renewal of public work contracts. Second. Anyone?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. We move on to item 1O. That was,
Yeah, I understand why this item is before us. I have no problem with the consultant. That's the subject of this item. But I think, given our budget situation, especially as we're looking at the next 5 years, I think we have to start now being careful with things like on-call contracts. And I think the scope of work for this particular one is open-ended, and I think it's the wrong approach right now. There are 8 tasks that are part of this scope of work, and as far as I can see, only one of them is of a nature that would be a good match for the expertise of this particular consultant. All the other tasks could be allowed to be done by other entities in this community. For instance, related to agriculture, we have the Resource Conservation District here. So I think working with the Opportunity Center, seems to be a really good match, and I would welcome a very focused contract for that particular work. But I don't like the open-ended on-call nature of this. It's $80,000. That seems to be a lot of money for me, so I'm going to be voting no.
is there other discussion? Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that we adopt consent calendar, item 1O, on-call professional services agreement with Wood Consulting Services. Second, is there a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick?
No.
Councilmember Rohrbeck?
No.
Vice Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
Mayor Penrose?
I'm going to vote no. I'd like to look at the contract again. I agree with Councilmember Ruddock on this, and I'd like to have us look at it again. I certainly would like to keep a relationship with Erica Wood going. She's been a great help to the city, and but I do think it involves looking at, so I'll vote no.
Thank you.
Next, we have item 1Q. I'm not sure who pulled that.
The city manager.
Oh, it was, yeah.
Yes, Madam Mayor. In all honesty, this was an item that should have been on the regular agenda, and I apologize for that oversight. But we have Jaleesa Costa from our Community and Economic Vitality Division, who is supporting the CARES program right now. She'll give a brief presentation, and hopefully we'll move forward with this item. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor and Council Members, Community. Julissa Acosta, Community Services Analyst with City Manager's Office. I wanted to talk to you about the CARES contract that we have here for renewal. This is for fiscal year 2023-24. And as you already have heard in previous meetings from the CARES team and from city staff, this is a two-person community responder mental health team that responds to calls either dispatched from 911 or 988 in terms of mental health support, so suicidal ideations or substance use. It operates 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. With a service area from the Tom Lantis Tunnel to the San Mateo Santa Cruz County line. This year, the revised budget is a total of $549,944. And again, this is just a reminder, the program operates at 10 hours a day, 7 days per week. So far, for the upcoming fiscal year, we've secured $150,000 from the Badges grant. It's already been awarded. We are currently working with El Centro de Libertad to develop a grant for the crisis grant that is state-funded. This grant allows city or government agencies to apply for funding for programs that support mental health response teams that seek innovation, and they fund up to $500,000 per year. We are very confident that we'll receive this grant as we've followed all the steps, and our program has proven many successes already in the over a year that has been running. And for the remainder of the contract, we hope to sit down with the county and look at their contribution. If for any reason we're not awarded the crisis grants, we'll sit with the county again to look for funding collaboration. And the recommendation is to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter in contract with El Centro. Happy to answer any questions if you have anything.
Thank you, Julissa. Are there any questions?
No question, just I think this is a wonderful program, and I think we should definitely continue it. Thank you.
I think it's a wonderful program as well. It does concern me, the general fund contribution at this time. I know we're working on grants, and I feel pretty comfortable about our outlook in getting those grants. If the county doesn't step up and fund this sort of program here, but throughout the county, and if we can't get any grants, or if the state, grants dry up because the state's in economic straits as well, I think this, the item of general funding of the program needs to come back for a general policy discussion by the city council. Is this something that we want to take on? Is this, core mission? Are there other ways to finance it? But I think it's a major policy decision that we would give such a large chunk of the general fund for a purpose that's really not considered core mission to municipal operations. It's a health, mission. And maybe the entire council, after deliberating, would want to, but I think it needs to come back for a policy discussion.
Yeah, just piggybacking on that, this agreement that we're executing is for 4 years, up to 4 years or for 4 years?
It's up to 5 years, but it's in annual terms because we know that there could be issues with funding or hopefully a change to a more countywide or regional effort where we would not renew it in future years.
Right.
So what you're approving tonight is 1 year, and then we would be able to exercise options in the future.
So if we execute it for 1 year and we don't get more money, then we are still liable for that contract, or is it?
No, we would be able to cancel after 1 year.
No, I mean.
Oh, for this fiscal year? Gosh, I don't think we built a cancellation. We built the funding into this budget for this fiscal year if we didn't get the grant funding. And I'm certain we could work with El Centro. I think the hard part is they've built out a team, and they need to know how to plan for an entire fiscal year. I don't think it's fair to them to leave this fiscal year hanging beyond, the $150,000 in grant funding we currently have. But certainly they understand that in future years, we may not be able to renew.
And I think in terms of our performance on that contract, it'll be great if we can get numbers, from the sheriff. In other words, how much money are we saving in terms of law enforcement and things, based on past years, things that they've had to respond to, things that El Centro has been able to handle? Because I think in the long run, the idea is that it's a great cost savings to human life and to safety. So,
Well, except that, the sheriff will offer us, a base of service regardless, right? They have a staff that they have to fund. So it's not quite as clean as that. And I would just add that another issue is the fact that we're providing, our general fund would be paying for this service. Absent grants and county funding, we'd be paying it for the unincorporated areas as well. So that's another reason that we need to have a discussion about this.
no, I agree. We'll have to keep our eye on it. And there's certain things that don't have a specific monetary number you can place on, because they're providing mental health services.
Yeah.
So, and the preventative services. So how do you put a cost on what you prevented? But we know it's been very effective in how it's been received. And again, we're just being cautious. I'm pretty sure we will get the funding, because it's an unbelievably fantastic program. There's very few like it in the whole state, let alone the whole, the country. So, but yeah, it's just our job to keep an eye on it. Great.
Yeah, I think that the program is a model for the rest of the states. It's a model for the county. It's a model for California. It's a model for the United States. So I think we're going to be successful in getting the county to adopt something that's comprehensive and take it off our hands. That's what I'm hoping. So I think we should go ahead and fund it for this year with the option to renew it for the next 4 years.
I'm ready to make a motion unless there's...
Just if I can make a couple comments just in response to what I've heard, I think it's just important so that the community knows that we're remaining thoughtful and vigilant on this. First, to the question about cost savings, just a reminder, we got a grant from the Kaiser Foundation to do a performance evaluation, a program evaluation of the first year pilot of this program, which that pilot ends at the end of this month. And we have a third-party firm that is doing that evaluation. One of the things they're looking at is what types of cost savings result from a program like this. To Councilmember Ruddock's point, we don't expect to see the city save money in this case because we have a base service level with the sheriff that will not go down. But I think by proving that it saves costs in general, that helps to justify the need for this program on a countywide basis where the cost savings could be real. And you could see reductions in service levels and costs across the county. And then, regarding the grant, we were very hopeful that this state grant, which was announced over a year ago, the timing would have aligned with city and county fiscal years. Unfortunately, it aligns with the state fiscal year, which means they won't be announcing awardees until August. And so we had to go into this year a little bit blind. The good thing is it's not a one-year grant, it's a 3-year grant. So we will know this year what the future of funding for this program looks like and be in a much better position next year to have planned out our budget for it in future years, or if we're gonna have to make adjustments. So appreciate that.
Thanks for that, Matthew. And I think since we do cover a lot more of the coast, I think the county will be very cooperative in helping us fund it further. Okay, I'm happy to make a motion unless there's any more comments. Okay. I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to finalize and execute an agreement with El Centro de Libertad for Libertad for a community responder program at a cost not to exceed $549,944 for a term beginning July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024, including options for up to 4 annual renewals, conditional upon available funding.
Second.
Madam Mayor, I apologize, but we didn't call for public comment, and at one point we did have an online hand raised.
Okay.
It's back up, yes.
Greg Dieguez.
I was anticipating what Debbie Ruddick said. The Mid-Coast is a potential beneficiary of this service. So if you would like, I will write a letter of endorsement on behalf of the MCC requesting county funding in support of this program, do whatever I can to lobby with Ray Mueller. I appreciate both your attention to the budget and I'm sensitive to the need for the money. So let me know how I can help and I'll do what I can.
Thank you, Greg. That's great.
So the motion's been made. We just need a second and then a vote.
I made a second.
Oh, you did second, sorry.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone.
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick.
Yes.
Councilmember Arbeck.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez.
Yes.
Mayor Penrose.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we move on to item 3A.
After this, can we take a short break?
Yeah. I think it's time.
After 3A.
If we're going to end by 10, we've got to, it's only 5 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Maz Bozerginia, Public Works Director. I'm here to present on the Carter Park Access License and Easement Agreement located at 20 Stone Pine Road. The recommendation, as stated in the staff report, is to approve the agreement to acquire temporary construction access, license, and permanent pathway easement over the real property at 20 Stone Pine. Went over a little bit of the project background in the past meeting. Just this project has been going on for a number of years. It was identified in the park's master plan as an underutilized park facility. Over the next few years, we've gone through CDP CEQA. We were able to obtain grant funding from the state in the amount of $4.75 million and commenced on construction in May of 2022. As the community has seen, there had been some delays with regards to access rights to the project. Tonight, we are here to look at improving that with this agreement, allowing the access to move forward with the park project. We've also been working with the shopping center, the tenants and the owner to make sure that their businesses are seen. I'm being timed apparently. Make sure the businesses are seen by the public, that people are aware that they're open during construction. We're also working with our designers and team on looking at making this project a little bit more flood resilient with the storms that we saw in the 22-23 year earlier this year. So those are the things that are kind of going on behind the scenes. So with this action tonight, we can really start the construction for the majority of the project and get back on track. With that, the recommendation, again, is to acquire the temporary construction access license and permanent pathway easement by approving this agreement. It includes a 12-month non-exclusive temporary construction access, an exclusive 12-month temporary construction access license, and a permanent pathway along the sidewalk that connects from Main Street to Carter Park. That's it.
Bring it back to council for discussion. Is there any public comments? Okay, council, anything?
I just want to say thank you to Maz, our Public Works Director, and Matt Chittister, our City Manager, and Catherine Engberg, our Legal Counsel, and I know there are others, for working very hard on this issue. It was a very thorny issue. It required a lot of, hand-holding and due diligence, and I'm feeling really good about where we are, so thank you for all you've done. Appreciate it.
I want to echo what Council Member Ruddick just said. Thank you.
Yeah, ditto.
Amen.
I do have a question. The resolution, can you put that up again? There's something's non-exclusive and something is exclusive. For the benefit of the public, could you explain what those two temporary construction access?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the permanent access, so the exclusive access is the area in pink that is here on the screen. It is 4 parking spaces and the access bay that maintenance has used in the past to access Carter Park. That location would be gated off as part of the construction. So that's what would be the exclusive piece. The non-exclusive is the green, which is basically the access road and the parking lot itself.
Thank you. And the permanent pathway is the sidewalk that goes from Main Street up to Mariners Church.
Yes, the majority of it along 10 Stone Pine Carter Park is within the city's right-of-way, fee title property, but there's a portion of the sidewalk that's shown in orange here that is on 10 Stone Pine, 20 Stone Pine. So that would be the permanent easement for that.
Great, thank you. May I have a motion, please?
Could we bring the resolution back up, please, on the screen?
Resolution on the screen?
There it goes. Thanks. I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement to acquire temporary construction access license and permanent pathway easement over real property at 20 Stone Pine Road, including a non-exclusive 12-month temporary construction access, an exclusive 12-month temporary construction access license, and a permanent pathway easement, collectively access.
Second.
Have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
Mayor Penrose?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'm going to ask for a 5-minute break. Can we please be back here at 8:25? Thank you. agreement for law enforcement services with the County of San Mateo Sheriff's Office, Amendment 15.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be taking this item. I don't have a presentation for this. I will just share a little bit of background. Really what we're doing here is carrying something forward for a brief period of time and continuing to work with the Sheriff's Office. So just by way of background, in 2011, the city began contracting with the Sheriff's Office for law enforcement services. Previous to that, we had our own local police department, the costs of which were not something that the city could bear any longer. As part of that agreement, each year the costs are adjusted to reflect the actual expected annual costs of providing those services. And so over the years, the cost has increased. This year, the cost increased significantly. The proposed cost increased significantly due to the county doing a county-wide cost study to evaluate and make sure that their costs of services matched what it cost them to provide those services, and they had discovered several areas that they needed to increase. That significant increase is, of course, a concern for a small city like ours with a tight budget, and so we've requested more time to work with the Sheriff's Office and negotiate on that rate and make sure that, one, we're getting everything that we're paying for, and two, that they've really justified all those additional costs. They've agreed to that. They're a good partner. And so what we're proposing tonight is a short-term extension of the existing agreement at the existing rate for 3 months. And then we will continue to work with the Sheriff's Office and come back in September with a proposal for the remainder of this fiscal year. Based on the rate that they had proposed if you take that over the first quarter, which is what we're talking about here, now you compare that to the rate we're paying now and are proposing to pay for the first quarter, it results in about a $350,000 cost savings to the city. Obviously, we're going to take that and continue to work with the sheriff on the remainder of the year. We continue as staff to believe, we evaluate this contract on a very regular basis. We believe that we do get good value, especially compared to having an in-house police department. As you probably know, law enforcement services are expensive to provide, and we can't, as a small city, take advantage of some significant, it's right at the tip of my tongue, economies of scale that a large organization like the Sheriff's Office can take advantage of, and you'll see across the state it is extremely common for smaller cities to contract with their local sheriffs, the exception of which would be the high wealth communities like a Hillsborough or an Atherton, who obviously have additional tax dollars to spend on that local control. We know that the community always has concerns about getting the best services from what they see as an outside organization. But we continue to work with the Sheriff's Office. We're pleased with the leadership they provide. And as I mentioned earlier, had a coast-side visit from Sheriff Corpus and her leadership team today. They are committed to the coast. There's a lot of big plans in store for the coast side, both from a law enforcement and from an emergency preparedness perspective, which is really exciting. And we're looking forward to hearing more about those developments as they come forward. One of the things that we talked about is in August hosting them at a council meeting for our annual report and just learning more about our new sheriff's platform and how that applies to our community. So again, we recommend this short-term measure to continue to working with them, and then we'll come back in September with longer-term plans. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public opinion, public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for discussion.
I have a comment. Recently had the opportunity to learn about a new, a different approach to training, to train the deputies, something that I'm very interested on, learning about, dealing with our public safety in the training they're receiving, more mental health approach. Even the way they train, when doing extractions, when entering a home or a building. So I saw the facility, it's very nice. And that's something we have been asking for years, a new way of how our community will be safer and feel safe when something like this happens. As the recent incident that we had in Half Moon Bay, the shooting, the approach that our deputies are taking. Now I'm going to have the opportunity, to actually be part of the simulator, to see how, from the eyes of a deputy, what they, the training and what they go through, the extensive, yes, many different things, and that's one. I remember bringing this, up, several times during even the subcommittee of the public safety. What kind of training do we have? We're asking our sheriffs to have, the community engagement, the participation of community, but also when they're doing the real work, when weapons are around. So I'm very happy, the county, the sheriff's department is taking a new approach. I'm very supportive of the new ways of training as to be safer for our community and, of course, our deputies.
Great. That's great that you were able to do that, Joaquin.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks for letting us know about that.
Other council members? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute Amendment 15 to the agreement for law enforcement services with the County of San Mateo Sheriff's Office, continuing services under the current rates payment schedule through September 30th, 2023.
Second.
Have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohraback?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
Mayor Penrose?
Yes, and I'd just like to say I appreciate the fact that our staff can work so well with the sheriff's office that we were able to save $350,000 because the increase in cost for this next year is going to be significant. So that's great. Thank you for that. Move on to item 3C. Half Moon Bay Sewer Collection System Maintenance Sewer Authority, Mid-Coast Side.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council and community. Osmo Zergini again. I'm here tonight to present the contract for the sewer collection system maintenance with the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side, also known as SAM. The request tonight is to consider the 23-24 collections budget, which is the cleaning of the sewer system, and consider authorization of the amendment number 6 to that item. A little bit of overview. The city of Half Moon Bay has a collection system that is smaller than its geographic boundaries. We have approximately 35 miles of gravity lines starting at Frenchman's Creek to the north and going down to Ocean Colony and Moon Ridge. Within that boundary, we also have 3 pump stations and force mains associated with them. Bell Moon, which is on Main Street, Pelican Point, which is down off of Miramontes Point Road, and Ocean Colony near the golf course. Overall, we have an approach for the collection system cleaning with multiple agencies and contractors. The wastewater treatment, which we'll talk more at the next item, is through SAM. The cleaning is essentially through a contract with SAM, but it's a separate cost outside of the shared costs. We also work with them on our pump station inspections, and we have other areas that also talk about. It's not part of this contract item, but we also do our FOG program, which is fat, oils, and greases, and prevention of those types of materials making it to the sewer system, which do cause blockages and potential issues with the system. So we contract with Mark Thomas as well as city staff to do those inspections with our businesses that are fog producing. We also do closed circuit television inspections, which is essentially a cameraing of our system to see if we have any issues with our pipes, if there's any point repair systems that we need to address, to help us identify larger capital projects. And we also do our pump station repairs, which can be a wide variety of different vendors depending on what component, whether it's a generator or a pump itself. It could be a different contractor that would be necessary. The SAM contract services, this is an annual service that we've been, this is the Sixth Amendment, as I mentioned. The system cleaning has been reduced and has been doing pretty well. We do 50% of our main lines, 50% of those 35 miles, with additional increases in hotspots. The hotspots are areas where we have long-term identification of concerns with fat, oils, and greases. So a lot of our areas in the downtown, areas that are a little bit shallower and don't have enough fall in our systems, those are more considered on the hotspots. That list continues to be reviewed and analyzed and does shift over time. So those hotspots are more frequent. We have up to quarterly on certain areas. As I mentioned, there's inspections of the pump stations. The SAM also does the sanitary sewer overflow response, which is a 24/7 response whenever there's a potential for a spill. With this contract, we also do underground service alert markings, which is anytime there's a construction that does excavation, they call 811, and that gets the notification out to all the utilities. So SAM does those markings for us to avoid any contractor impacts with our systems. And then as far as our costs, they have been relatively steady the last couple of years since we've reduced it to 50% for the main lines. There is a small escalation from $254,000 approximately last year to $263,824 for fiscal year 23-24, and that is mostly related to COLA increases and staffing costs. So with that, we have a recommendation to adopt this resolution, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, I'll bring it back to council for discussion. Comments? None? I'll entertain a motion then.
Okay, I would like to move that we adopt a resolution approving the FY 2023-24 Sewer Authority Midcoast Side Collections Budget and authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 6 to the Sewer Collection System Maintenance Professional Services Agreement with the Sewer Authority Midcoast Side, establishing the FY 2023-24 annual cost of $263,824 and extending the agreement for one additional year expiring on June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. That moves us to item 3D. This is the Sewer Authority Midcoast Fiscal Year 2023-24 Operations and Maintenance General Budget.
Thank you. Your motion was faster than I can switch my PowerPoints. Where is it? There we go. Thank you again. So this item is related to the Sewer Authority Midcoast Side Operations and Maintenance Budget. So apologies, there's a lot of words on this one. The request for this one is a conditional approval based on some of the ongoing litigation that we have. And so the motion tonight is a little bit more complex than normal, and we'll walk you through that. Again, a little bit of an overview of our overall system. SAM provides sewer treatment for the city as well as the Granada Community Services District and Montero Water and Sanitation District. That includes Moss Beach all the way up to Montero. The services that are provided by the SAM plant are under a joint powers agreement comprised of these 3 member agencies. And just overall, the plant operates at an average daily dry weather flow of approximately 4 million gallons per day, or 4 million MGDs. The operations and maintenance costs are based on a flow-based approach. So what that means is the amount of effluent that goes through the plant are assigned to the different districts based on the formula that is present in the JPA, which takes the flows from Montera and Granada Community Services District, subtracts it from the overall treatment, and assigns the rest to Half Moon Bay. So based on the 2022 calendar year, the city of Half Moon Bay, our portion is 61.5% for this next fiscal year. So one of the areas that is we've brought before the council and discussed is that the SAM combined operation and maintenance budget is a pretty large one. It's been increasing considerably. We do have a portion that's increased from 15%. That's our portion from 22-23. So we've gone up to 5.6 million. And our overall increase to the SAM budget was 11%. One area, and the big reason for these, there's obviously COLA increases and certain staffing related increases, but the big piece is the capital expenditures. The capital expenditures are shown as part of the operations and maintenance budget, although it, as an infrastructure cost, although it makes more sense to be in a capital budget. Unfortunately, that's something that the member agencies have been unable to come to a consensus on, and it continues being an infrastructure piece to a larger budget. What the infrastructure cost, capital cost really is containing for this upcoming fiscal year is the intertie pipeline system. So the city's been paying under protest. That's been part of the ongoing litigation with regards to the IPS and some of these flow-based costs on infrastructure. And that's what we're seeing here for this upcoming year. With the 22-23 storms, there was quite a bit of storm-related damages, and there was a section of the Montero force main that was ruptured during those storms based on the high hydraulic activity and flows. And what that did was it required an immediate repair. They did a bypass system above ground. They went in there, replaced about 800 linear feet of pipe for about $450,000. Now, the SAM and the member agencies have been discussing the larger project, which is an overall replacement of this. And right now, we're looking at about over $10 million for the total project. The $3.5 million that is being requested by SAM towards our operations and maintenance budget includes most of that, majority of that $3.5 million goes towards the Montero force main replacement. With that, we've obviously gone through quite a bit of conversations. There's still some pieces out there, so that's why we have this very complex resolution tonight, which is essentially, I'll try my best, and our city attorney can jump in if I misspeak on anything. So what we're looking at doing is a couple of things. So with the conditional approval would be the city would approve the $3.5 million, which is the fully budgeted amount of the Half Moon Bay's portion minus our infrastructure share. So that's the big change. Rather than the 5.6, it would be 3.5. So that difference would be what would be going towards the infrastructure portion. Then, so that would be the first action. And then the second item is to approve the full one, which would be based on the flow-based allocation up to the 5.6 million, but that would be paid under protest and directs the mayor and the city manager to refrain from delivering the resolution to SAM and paying under that protest. So essentially, if we can come to a stipulation for an agreement on paying under protest, we can, the motion would be to move forward with that full amount under protest. I hope that was clear. That's it for the presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any clarifying questions from the board? None. Do we have public comment?
Yes, Greg Dieguez.
Council members, I want to read you something I found in researching the formation of the JPA. Back in 1976, a hearing was held in Montera. Mr. Robert Magnaskow was appalled that a sewer plant functioning at 50% of capacity would be abandoned and the raw sewage would be pumped 9 miles for treatment. But that's what happened. Montero was forced to abandon a perfectly good sewer plant and join in the JPA. Note that the businesses on the Cherry Stem, like Sam Chowder House, houses in Frenchman's Creek, and half of Murata are all in Half Moon Bay, and they're all serviced by the SAM IPS. So the idea that Half Moon Bay gets no benefit from the IPS is incorrect. Plus the value of wet weather storage on the IPS, which has saved the plant from failure several times in recent years, and also eases maintenance work at the plant. The IPS is a material benefit to the city. Sewer plants are designed to handle peak load. There have been times in recent years where 100% of the SAM plant has been dedicated to Half Moon Bay flows in order to prevent disaster, and flows from the north were held back. Thus, 100% of the facility was needed by SAM. Now, to the issue of whether ownership or usage should be the basis for charging, my impression is that usage matters, but I certainly agree that the issue of measuring the I&I, infiltration and inflow, is something I brought up since January 2021. And I even had to have the MCC write a letter to SAM to even get a discussion on the SAM agenda to analyze the causes of the recent storms and their damage and the inflows. I'm still awaiting results of that expert review. I certainly would support putting meters on all flows into SAM and having all members of the Joint Powers Agency contribute to that investment and to the ongoing independent operation, maintenance, calibration, and measurement of those meters. And those results, following another heavy storm season, should greatly inform the debate about usage and costs. Note that Montera's agency has been requesting such meters for about a decade, and Half Moon Bay told me in March 2022 that meters were on order from Germany. And I can see that there already is a meter on one of the Half Moon Bay inflows, but it's inoperable. So I do encourage us to get meters to help narrow down what the problem is and who should be paying for it. I also don't see any mention in the staff analysis of the Ecological Rights Foundation federal lawsuit, to which Half Moon Bay was a party in settling, and which requires that IPS to be fixed. So I'm concerned that the city may be exposing itself to further legal liability if it doesn't fund the work to which you previously agreed. I do understand Half Moon Bay faces financial difficulties once again, and I'm eager to help look for funding solutions to ensure this community can continue to exist. Those would include changes to the charges for connection fees by member agencies, as well as grants and so on. There's much more that can be said about this topic, but my time's up, so I'll put it into an article and I'll send it to you all. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Greg. Back to council. May I have a resolution, please, a motion? Councilmember Rohrbach, would you make it?
I move that we adopt a resolution conditionally approving the general budget of SAM for fiscal year 2023 to 24. That's included as Exhibit A to the resolution as follows. 1, the city approves of $3,449,957, which is the full budgeted amount less 61.5% of the $3.5 million fiscal year 23-24 budgeted amount for the Montero Force Main Infrastructure Replacement Project. And 2, the city approves the full $9,109,686, of which the city's flow-based allocation for all costs is $5,602,457 to be paid under protest, but directs the mayor and city manager to refrain from delivering the resolution to SAM and paying under protest 61.5% of the Montero Force Main Replacement Project until all parties have executed the stipulation regarding expenses and assessments of Sewer Authority Midcoast site for 23-24 fiscal year, including any non-substantive changes the city attorney may approve, If this approval becomes effective and the resolution is signed and delivered, it will supersede the partial approval of Sam's budget specified in paragraph 1 above.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
Mayor Penrose?
Yes.
Motion
Yes.
carries.
We're moving on to item, where are we, 3C? No, we just did that.
3E.
3D.
3E.
3E.
Perfect.
Okay, 3E, please.
All right. Hello, Madam Mayor, council members, and members of the public. This presentation should be very familiar to council. This is to show you the recommended budget for fiscal year 2023 to 2024. So this budget, as council knows, has been in development since March of this year. As you can see on the timeline, the city has held listening sessions prior to setting finance committee. And we had the first meeting to a full council about 2 weeks ago to receive any feedback council had for us. And today is the last meeting for, hopefully, for formal adoption. The fiscal year starts on July 1st. Here are some of the very high-level highlights that council may remember. So revenues are conservatively assumed to be flat next year. The city is anticipating an economic slowdown. A severe downturn is considered unlikely, but we are assuming that the economy will cool off. Expenditures are increasing primarily from rising costs of existing services, mostly public safety. And this budget doesn't include anything that's programmatic in nature. There is one minor change in these numbers from the numbers presented 2 weeks ago. We had what's in here is a reclassification of 2 positions that council approved tonight, which gave us a bit of a net savings of $62,000. On to the numbers for the general fund. We have revenues of $21 million. It's a decrease of 1.8. One-time funds expiring, most of that being ARPA funds. We received that for 2 years, and we won't be receiving it going forward. Expenditures are close to $25 million, going up by 1.2. Most of that is public safety. And as a note, for capital projects this year, the contribution from the general fund is 2.8. This year was 4. Going into next year, it'll be 2.8. Reserves are at 11.1, which are also increasing by about $1 million. Here's the general fund budget summary with the expenditures broken out between operating and capital. By strictest of definitions, there is an annual deficit of 3.6, but we have quite a bit of savings in our unassigned fund balances to meet that. It does mean decreasing that balance from this year, but with those savings added, we come to a balanced budget. So going on to funds, balances, and reserves. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we have our reserves and balances for next year. If this budget were to be approved by council, we will have $11.1 million in reserves, making it fully funded per policy. Our policy is 50% of operating expenditures. Our unassigned balances would be about $185. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the math of this current fiscal year. We think we might end the year at $5 million unassigned. You take out the 3.6 that we're assuming as the gap for next year, and then another 1.2 is being allocated towards reserves. And now, finally, the recommendation. The recommendation is as follows. Approve resolutions to establish the GAN appropriation limit for fiscal year 2023-24. Approve the city's review of the investment policy, no changes, for fiscal year 2023-24. And adopt the fiscal year 2023-24 annual operating and capital budget. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Kenneth. Do we have public comment? There's no comment. Let's bring it back to council.
So I was looking at some of the charts in the summary that's available in the staff report, which the public can see. And it does compare, when you look at expenditures and transfers, all funds, from the general fund, if you look at the revised 22-23 budget and compare that to the recommended 23-24, yeah, the increase in total expenditures, and you can see that on page 47 of the budget too, is looks like just 5%. That, you know, people would say that looks reasonable, only 5% of total expenditures. But I'm concerned because if you look at page 47, which is actually C8 of the budget, which the public, you know, if they're really eager to review the budget, they might look at it. It's a huge document. They might not be able to find this, and we don't call it out in the staff report. Net operating expenditures over, the proposed over the revised fiscal year 22-23 is actually a 15.25% increase. So, you know, net operating expenditures are, you know, the things that we, you know, spend on day-to-day expenses, right? And those have gone up from the last year to the proposed 15.25%. So I'm concerned about that. 15% increase in operating expenditures looks to me like a lot of money, and it's not called out in the staff report. So happy to hear from staff on that issue, but it's of concern to me. Yes, you know, if you look at, you know, we're transferring less out of the general fund for operations and capital, but still the net operating expenditures are up 15%. Ken, do you have a comment about that?
Unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm taking notes so I can address that at a later date. I do want to repeat your question back to you. You had a question regarding the net number versus the...
Net operating expenditures.
Versus the gross.
Well, right now I'm just looking at net operating expenditures. This was in the chart called General Fund Restricted and Unrestricted Balances. So at the top, you have the beginning fund balance, but then under total revenue, you have net operating expenditures before you discuss the transfers. And so revised budget was $23,075,847. The proposed, wait a minute, this is not what I was looking at before. I forget what chart I was looking at, but it looked to me like net operating expenditures were up 15%. Am I wrong about that? Before you even deal with transfers.
Before transfers.
The transfers make it better.
That's
You know,
correct. The
total
transfers make it
expenditures.
better. The transfers have decreased by about 1.4 million, and 1.2 of that is capital. So yes, the transfers do make it better, because we're not funding as much to capital projects.
Yeah, so excuse me. So it was net operating last year revised was $17,727,089. The proposed budget is $20,405,000. $429,436. That's over a 15% increase just in, operating expenditures that we're proposing. So that's a lot. 15%.
And you are correct. I made sure that I verified, I'm looking at the general fund summary, which calls out the operating expenditures prior to the transfers and is in alignment with what you just shared. The difference, let me do the math one more time, but it is called out in the sense that we talk about the increases to expenditures, and when you take the increase to public safety, that accounts for almost all of that increase. So I think the percentage is important to point out, but we do point out the amounts which are directly related to the increase in public safety costs via 2 contracts with the county, the sheriff's contract and our 911 dispatch contract, which are both going up for the same reasons, which is that cost study that the county did.
Well, yes, so, the public safety increase is a lot, but if you look at it, the section both in the budget and the staff report, when you talk about changes in the base budget, there's a lot of them. There's a 3% COLA, there's the increase in dispatch, there's the money for CARES, it's a lot. And I look at that 15% increase, and then I look at the chart in the staff report, the 5-year forecast, that looks terrible. Yeah. I think, we're doing a lot of good stuff in this community. We have a lot of great staff accomplishing a lot, but, it seems to me like, we're spending a lot more money and we're sort of kicking the can down the road. We say we're going to be looking at, efficiencies and potential new revenue sources, but I think I would have felt better if we'd, tried to start tackling it like this fiscal year, is all I wanted to say. Because I think a greater than 15% increase in operating expenditures is a lot. So that's my concern. And I think that should have been called out more in the staff report so the public sees that. All they saw was like a 5% increase in total expenditures, when really, net operating expenditures are a lot more. So.
Other council members?
No, I appreciate Council Members Ruddock's calling out those numbers, and we do have that Uber 5-year forecast. So, yeah, it's on our watch. We can start taking action now, anticipate what's going to happen over 5 years. And I like that we're looking at a lot of grants. So, yeah, it would be nice to have a more robust strategy because we don't know what revenues are going to look like. So what are some of our backup plans? And I brought up a couple of things, There's some vacancies. Maybe we don't, fill them right away until we're sure. How do we start working that? Do we have a list of options and what that might look like? Where can, because I hate, we can't keep putting off infrastructure projects, especially with the kind of stress that they've been under with storms. So what are the other options? What kind of things can and staff recommend, that you see other cities do, or so we can at least talk about it? That would be great.
And I would like to point out, coming into this budget year, we knew we were losing the ARPA funding, which obviously is a revenue impact. And so we came into this planning to hold expenditures flat, discretionary expenditures, right? Certain things we don't have control over, like the COLA, which was already negotiated over a 5-year period, and some of our outside contracts with the county. The cost increase that are coming from the county were completely unexpected, brought to us very late in the game, which is why we negotiated with the sheriff to postpone enacting the full contract. And it is all very, very concerning, and I think that's the message, is that we're in a good position this fiscal year, and this is the year where we have to take these steps and be very proactive to look at the out years. I'll remind us that we're being extremely conservative on our revenues or projections of revenues. We have our HDL is our consultant for TOT, which of course is our main revenue source here in Half Moon Bay. They gave us 3 different projections based on 3 different models. We chose to go with the most conservative projection. We could have very easily said, hey, we'll take the easy route out and we'll take the middle ground. And that would have resulted in a very different looking budget. But we think the fiscally prudent thing to do is go fully conservative with the unknowns that are out there. Use this year as an opportunity to, one, track those projections and see what where we're at on TOT, especially when we get to mid-year. And I think that is the time we have to start taking drastic actions if necessary. What I don't want to do is panic, to start taking drastic actions now that affect our level of service and the quality work we're doing for the community, and come back at mid-year and go, you know what, we were too conservative and we overreacted. And we've cut back services, we've done things that didn't need to happen in the community. So I think we've picked a middle ground where we have no discretionary increases in expenditures. The only increases in expenditures are for COLAs and for contracts we don't have control over. And the next step, of course, is starting to cut back on our services to the community. I would like to at least give ourselves through the mid-year to evaluate our actual financial situation now that we know what those numbers look like going forward, and then start making some of those tough decisions. So that's the thinking that went into this budget, especially late in the game when it changed on us in the last month and a half.
I agree that, by and large, these expenditures are not discretionary. We're kind of between a rock and a hard place there. But we did see this coming. I think we could have done a better job of starting to look at ways to cut expenses or, identify efficiencies. We've put it off. We've punted. And I'm unhappy about that. And I think we should have been clear in the budget staff report about what the real net operating expenditure increase was. I'm going to approve this reluctantly, but I think we need to be more aggressive on dealing with this 5-year forecast. And, not rely on fixes like increasing the sales tax. We have to look at how we operate and do a tighter job there. And I will say, I've been reading the San Mateo Daily Journal. A lot of other cities have approved budgets that are pretty much in the same boat as ours. But action is going to be needed. And my remarks do not detract from your stellar work, Ken. But I think I'm going to approve this budget unhappily.
And just a couple of quick things. Last year when you presented the budget, you called it out. You said there was this 5-year line that was looking cautionary. So we knew that before this whole thing with the sheriffs came up, right? So sheriff's piece definitely exacerbates the numbers, and to our credit, we also have $11 million in reserve, which is fantastic. That would be the envy of most cities, that percentage. But, we got to be careful sometimes with the words we use, because, you said, Matthew, drastic. No one was speaking drastic. I'm talking about smart, considered measures. So, let's hold on to that drastic word, because that implies slashing, and people, I think, we just want to be careful, and we don't want to greatly diminish services. Sometimes some services might take a little more time if we don't have enough, staff. But we also just really need to be prudent because we're just in unexpected times. So there's too much stuff that's out of our control, unfortunately, and emergencies and weather and fires. So I like that we have that reserve. I think that is very cautious and smart approach. And yeah, we'll be looking at other things and look forward to those recommendations where we can conserve. So good. I think it never hurts for us all just to take a step back and say, hey, let's make sure because again, we're all in it together. We're all trying to get through it. And I'm always very optimistic, but do just want to protect our budget looking forward and not get caught off guard, 18 months from now. So great, thank you. Great work.
Yeah, I agree. I think when it comes time to the midterm budget, we ought to have really looked at what potential ways we can approach a decrease in the budget. So if we've got a plan when the midterm comes up, then we can move more comfortably from then on out. So I like that idea. Thank you. Kenneth, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. Anything else from council? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we review the recommended fiscal year 23-24 budget document and adopt a resolution to, 1, establish the GAN appropriation limit for fiscal year 23-24, 2, approve the city's review of the investment policy, and 3, adopt the fiscal year 23-24 annual operating and capital budget.
Nicely done. I second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
Mayor Penrose?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, I think that might just be it for tonight. We finished in record time. My microphone is off. We finished in record time. I think we did a good job. Thank you, everybody, for your cooperation, your participation. This meeting is adjourned.
I win all bets somehow.
What time did you say?
I said 10:15. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Deborah said 10.